When you think about your political giving, when you think about the influence that you want to have and the mark you want to make, what's most important to you?
Well, I think you need to think about the arc of one's life. In my 20s, I gave my time. I didn't have money to give in my 20s. I gave my time. I actually tutored in the inner city of Chicago and saw firsthand the challenges that these young, in this case, boys and girls face in trying to break the cycle of poverty. Like, it's really, really tough work to tutor these kids who are so far behind. And at Citadel, one of the things that we support is we support our colleagues being involved in nonprofit organizations. We have several hundred colleagues who are on the boards of nonprofit institutions across the country, giving of their time to improve other people's lives. I'm really proud of that. That's such a part of the ethos and culture of the firm. Now, over the years, time became scarcer, money became more plentiful, started to give money to support public education reform. How do we help young men and women? In Chicago, one of the things I love doing is I would help to underwrite the cost of giving books to every newborn child in the city of Chicago. It's a well-established fact that the number of books a child is exposed to early in life actually has a disproportionate impact on their entire educational journey. If I looked at all the work that I did, though, in public education in particular, I would often see that work undermined by very poor political policies. In some sense, we often put the interest of the teachers union in front of the interest of the students. And if I wanted to see kids have a chance to get ahead of the United States, I decided it was important to support politicians, both Republicans and Democrats, who put education as a very important part of their platform. And over the years, I've continued to support candidates on both sides of the aisle who really do lead with an education-first policy.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because coming into this interview, I was going to ask about what mark you wanted to make on the Republican Party, but it sounds like you're not limited to that.
I'm not limited to that. I find in general I tend to agree with more of the policies from the Republican Party, but it's important to recognize people in both parties that really do lead the charge fighting for the interests of children.
So in the near term, I am curious, as somebody who is looking at, as you said, both parties change, what is the way that President Trump is changing the Republican Party? And where do you fit into the spectrum of ideas?
Well, let me answer a different question. Let me tell you how I'm focused on helping to change the Republican Party. One of the big pushes that we made over recent years was to substantially increase the number of people who ran for office in the Republican Party who were women, who were veterans, and who were people of color. Because I believe the Republican Party needs to do a better job of representing all of America. So that's been a big push for us over the recent years, has been bringing people with those backgrounds into public service. You know, I was an adamant supporter, for example, of David McCormick. Really strong businessman, really great experience in serving our country. That's the kind of person that I want to see in Washington representing the interests of all of us who live in our great country.
You are one of the very few people who own an original Constitution. What does it mean to you these days?
I would say that the Constitution represents the pinnacle of the foresight, idealism, and intellect of our founding fathers. I mean, they created a structure of government that has not only survived, but has prospered for 250 years. I mean, it is really remarkable how the United States of America, and the history of our country is not perfect, but how this country has led the world for the last 250 years under the principles enshrined in that document.
Is there anything about that document that's at risk today?
You know, I think that people like to talk about how the current administration has put some of the principles in the Constitution at risk. I think that's largely overblown. When it's all said and done,